Well, when I graduated, I actually wanted to pursue my master's degree. And then I realized that I'm just doing this because it's a process. I'm not
That
doing it
is, you have
because
to
it's,
do it. This is something that is, you are supposed to do it. Now you got
yeah,
your license. Now you got
exactly.
the
Primary school,
masters.
middle school, high school, bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, and you
I
keep on
see.
going.
But how did you realize that? That is, how did you see that you said, this path, I don't want to take this path. Because it's not something easy to come to as a decision. So, but how did you have discussions? Did you?
Um, when I knew that um, having a master's degree um, wouldn't, well, let me not say wouldn't be of help, but it wouldn't make such a big difference unless you have experience in the field. Why?
Mm,
Because if you are a teacher, for example, let's forget a little bit about teaching. If you're a manager, okay, and you take a BA, business administration, you would graduate and go take experience in the same field. They would require 3 years minimum experience, and then you would go back to the MBA. Why would you do the MBA? It's because there are advanced or a bit more advanced notions that you need to take. However, you cannot take them unless you see the gap
mm.
through practice. So as a teacher, you need to see the gaps, okay, and then you go and take the masters, and then you practice, and then you see the gap, and then you go take the PhD. So the PhD is something, like very high leveled. It's not a successive thing to do. Like, it's not about taking the masters and then going to the PhD. It's about taking the masters, taking the experience or the enough experience, and then doing the PhD, because they're not only titles that we'd like to take. They are, let's say, knowledge.
Sure, sure,
It's a bit more
sure.
advanced knowledge. However, you wouldn't appreciate it if you still haven't taken enough experience in the field.
That would that would justify or motivate the necessity of having that particular major, that particular diploma, or that
Thank you.
particular
Yes.
certificate, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
what I'm curious about is, was this mindset something that you had really back at that time when you graduated? You said, no, I want to go out and discover the world first, and then see if this is going to add anything or have an added value to my personality or to my skills or to what I need? Or was it something that you said, okay, I don't need for now, and let me see what I can do with? That is, were you more interested in the job opportunities and the career than in studies, and so you said, no, I don't need a master's now? And you have proven that. I think that you are, and this is why حكاية حكاية, which is the title of this the name of this podcast. You are living proof that you don't need like degrees to succeed in your professional career, because you've been recruited by many different companies and institutions, and we'll come back to that in a bit. But I'm curious about what was the mindset right after you graduated, because to have this mindset when you graduate, it, it's something that perhaps you realize later on, but when you graduate, you most of the time think like everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, your question has two sides. So the first side is actually what motivated me to stop and come here to Dubai, for example, and travel abroad. And the
that
second
that
side
be
is,
that being the consequence of not like having no interest in your studies. And that's where not in your studies, but in having like a master's. Is saying,
Yeah.
no, I don't want that yet. So I guess my question here is, there are a lot of people who pursue masters not because they are interested in the masters, but because they have to do it. It's just like a social, it's just like a social requirement. And as you said, neither their level nor their motivation is there to study the masters. So what I see, especially now, is people like having the masters and they've attended no classes at all. And this is
Yeah.
the worst thing
Unfortunately.
ever. And the same for the PhD. And I totally agree with you that unless you don't see really a gap in your professional career, in your practices, in your experience that would motivate you to do that, there is no pressure to do it. But to the people who are listening to this, who are watching this, this is quite an unusual experience that you've had when you said, no, I want to stop here. But I'm curious about that particular decision. How was it made? Was it something difficult? Was it something that you thought about a lot? Did you have some pushback? That's what I want to know about. Especially that you were an excellent student. It's not like you wouldn't have you wouldn't be accepted into a master's here or elsewhere.
I was accepted actually. I had a good ranking, especially back then. But the problem was not either I take the masters or I go to it wasn't an option for me. It wasn't something optional. I wanted to make a decision back then. I wanted to make a decision. It was either I enter the professional world and forget a little bit, because I didn't expect that I would spend more than 2 years abroad. When I wanted to travel, I just wanted to travel for experience, 2 years, and come back in order to continue my master's degree and so on and so forth.
So it was for you. It was
realized,
on hold. Let's say it was on hold. Okay,
yeah.
I get it now.
Let me tell you, the opportunity of free education does not happen everywhere.
Yeah, sure. No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all.
It costs a lot for you to study elsewhere.
My God, yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I mean, people seize the opportunity of free education and keep on studying and studying and studying over and over. If you ask them what would their motive be, they wouldn't know, because it's just they don't have something to stop them and have them think a little bit about what they want to do in the future. Like there are a lot of, let me tell you this. When I came here, the first 2 years, I saw a lot of different stuff. For example, apart from teaching English, there is something else called training. There is teaching and training. I didn't discover this till I came here. So teaching is to teach something, and training is to train a skill, right? Teaching to teach a language, and training to train a skill. And then I realized that there are some other professional diplomas that you can take in order for you to develop or improve your positioning in the training field. For example, there is CELTA, if you'd like to to rank up a little bit, in the teaching field.
Yeah, there's sometimes that there is Delta.
Delta, yeah. So Delta is something else. Like when you go to international companies, they're not going to ask you for your master's degree. They're going to ask you for professional diplomas. They're going to ask you for professional certificates. Like they wouldn't say, "Hey, do you have a master's degree?" They would say, "Do you have a CELTA?"
Yeah. So and here I think we come to a very important question of value. That is,
Yeah.
where is value? And the more you invest in value, the better. Because there are some people who invest in things that have no value, neither for them, like in terms of personal satisfaction, nor for their professional career. For example, I have many students who come to me, they finish their license. I say, hey, sir, I've seen this like master's degree in Indonesia. Should I go for it? I would say, why would you go to Indonesia to study a master's? Why would you do that? Why? Like, is it just for the adventure, or is it for, why would you invest time and money and effort and being like far away from home in studying a master's in Indonesia? Why would you do that? And I ask the question because I want to see if they have any kind of answer for it. And usually they are like, I don't know. I guess it's good because it's abroad. And so it's very important to be aware of the value of what we are doing. That is, yeah, you want to do a master's in Indonesia because they told you right after you finish your master's in Indonesia, we are going to give you a house and a car and the job at the university here, then do it. Sure.
Exactly. Sure.
But
sure.
Just do it like that, I don't see. And so I think you are raising a very important issue there, especially for our young graduates who are of course confronted to such questions about their careers, about their choices. Yes.
You know, before thinking about the master's degree, I would give this very important advice. Learn the language. Learn the language. It's very, very important and critical. You know, like it's even worse if you say I have a master's degree and you don't master the language. That's
the key point. Yeah, I think
you gotta master the language first, and then you master like you use the language in something. You monetize your bachelor's degree, and then you move on to investing in yourself again in order to have more income, more revenue. You cannot just think about education as a successive thing that's, you know, I'm bored, let me just continue because I still haven't found a job. The job still hasn't come and knocked on my door. And no, it's not about that. It's about you taking your bachelor's degree, you investing in yourself, stop a little bit, master the language to the fullest, and then you go and monetize that experience, that educational experience. And then after that, you move on to the master's, because now what people think is I would graduate and say I have a master's in order for me to get a job, but I don't know English. And that's shameful. That's shameful.
Do you think that within your point here, do you think that expresses, that is, wanting to have the masters on the expense of like mastering the language or having skills, do you think that expresses some kind of an insecurity? Like the getting the masters is just a way to deal with that particular insecurity, which is, I can speak the language, I don't know anything about the language, or I'm intermediate when I'm supposed to be masters, because it's called master, which is supposed to be
exactly mastery, you know.
Yes.
I wouldn't call it insecurity. I would just call it randomness, you know, like being random. Being random, not knowing where to go, not having a destination. Now, if there is something after the PhD, they would have done it.
Yeah.
They would have kept on.
Yeah.
It's not okay. So here, for example, let me just give them a piece of advice, if you may. Now we have different stages, different educational stages. We go to primary school in order to have the basics. Then we go to middle school in order for us to build a personality, build who we are, because that's teenagehood. And then we move on to high school. That is in order to be prepared for being an adult and so on and so forth. And then you go to university, that prepares you for the world or the professional world. So now, if we talk about the span of time that we spend in this duration, it's 6 years plus 4, that's 10, 3, that's 13, and another 3, that's 16. So 16 years of education, of studying. I think it is more than enough for a person to start a junior position. Let's say a junior position. I'm not talking about a managerial position, because there's nobody that climbs the ladder or jumps up the ladder without going from the basics.
Sure.
So junior position. Let's say, for example, you assist a certain teacher in teaching. Why do you assist that teacher? Not for the salary, it's for the experience. It's at least to learn from that teacher how to teach. And then later on, you go to the next stage, which is you start being a teacher. All right. So you start being a teacher, and then later on, you need to, grow up in the, let's say, go up the ladder a little bit. So when you go up the ladder, you'll find a certain gap, a certain knowledge gap between you and the next level. Let's say, for example, if you'd like to go to be a university teacher, you have a lot of prerequisites in order for you to be able to enter university as a teacher. So what do I have to do? I have to take bachelor's, master's, PhD. I can take master's and start university, but you cannot be a university teacher unless you have a certain level of knowledge of what you can give. Now, what I see youngsters, and not everybody is going to be accepted at university to be a teacher. So what do they have to do? They have to go to the parallel business sector, which is the private sector. So the private sector does not believe in what you have as a certificate or as a diploma or as your major, or either you were the first in your class or the last in your class. They don't care about that. What they care about is the language. I mean, now, for example, I have an office and I want someone to be a receptionist, for example, and this receptionist needs to speak English. If they don't speak English, I'm not going to hire them. If someone comes without a diploma or without a certificate, I would accept them as long as they speak the language.
Sure.
But it doesn't matter if you have a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD.
And this is where I want to come to. You said in 2014, you said, okay, I'm going to put the project to further my studies on hold, going abroad to Dubai for 2 years or other places, and then come back. In those 2 years, what happened that pushed you to say, okay, first of all, I am not going for 2 years. This is going to be for how long now? Have you been?
Almost 9 years.
10 years. What happened there that convinced you that, okay, I'm going to focus more on developing my professional career. I'm going to focus more on developing my skills, so that we'll talk a bit later on about how you transitioned from being a teacher to becoming now a trainer and then to becoming a manager, right?
Yeah.
So what happened in that period that changed your mind? Was it the fact that when you had this licence, this diploma, then you went abroad and you found that you were accepted with your competence, that convinced you, okay, I can grow. There is room to grow here.